Welcome back to Dreamgirl. We are on lesson 10. So, this would be the end of this journey. However, hopefully, the beginning of much more to come for you in the world of dreams and making them a reality. Surrender is all about taking everything that we looked at over the previous lessons and putting it into practice by letting it happen. Surrender is a huge part of the relationship that we have with the universe. And I want to take you back to one of the previous lessons we had where I showed you the importance of perception, the importance of not only how we look at things, but also where this is leading us and what is our responsibility. How do we surrender? Because surrender for us is often one of the hardest things to do. We're used to following the egoic mind that wants to control things. We want to know what's up. And the reason why we want that is because when we don't control something and we don't know what's happening next, we feel anxious. And that anxiety that has spread over the generations and has spread over our lives really makes us feel like we're not at ease with ourselves, with life, and we are always kind of worried that something that happens to us is going to be negative. So that fear, worry, anxiety, that all comes from the egoic mind, as we saw in previous chapters. So the important thing here is to be able to surrender. And in order to be able to surrender, what we need to do is understand the concept, understand what is actually happening and why we do not need to fret. So if I take you back to the love ladder that I emotionally went through, if you remember, we had the perception on the one hand where, you know, a relationship that was volatile led to breakup, and then it led to another relationship, or, you know, I met another guy and there was deception, another guy there was breadcrumbs, another guy that was emotionally unavailable. So, you know, certain themes kept going through from time to time, and every time we could have looked at it thinking, I feel rejected, I feel rejected, I feel rejected, I feel rejected, why me? You know, just that feeling of like, why does this always happen to me? Why can't I meet a nice guy? And that side is really kind of trying to control the outcome, having a very set idea of what we want, but somehow we're not attracting it. Well, now that we have been through this journey together and we know how vibrations work, and if we are finding ourselves on lower vibrations, we are only ever attracting lower vibrations. We need to take into consideration that the reason that I was meeting people who were operating on lower vibrations, deception, breadcrumbs, emotion, you know, like people who cannot communicate their truth because often they don't know their truth, that is lower vibration. And that only reflects that I would have been operating from lower vibrations as well. And if you remember, lower vibrations is not just being mean to others and deceptive. So me saying that, well, I'm none of these, that does not warrant that I'm not going to get one of these. Okay, so that's not how we can rely on it. What needs to happen first is the lower vibrations of self-respect, self-worth, self-love needs to be raised. So what we saw then happened by every time I said no to a vibrational behavior that I didn't like, I moved up the ranks. I moved up. So every time I said no to something, I said it out of self-love. I said because I had more respect for myself, not wanting to be in that kind of situation. So I moved up, I raised my own vibrations. I raised the love for myself, in other words, choosing me over the other person, and choosing my own opinion of myself, which was self-love, over the rejection from the other person. So this perception here actually showed me progression, very clear progression, even to a point where we can call it ascension. So I felt, even though maybe not at each point here because heartbreak was involved and that hurts, but on the other hand, there was always this kind of, it didn't hurt for that long. It didn't hurt because as soon as I made the decision that that is not good enough for me, I'm moving away from that, I was rejecting it. I was rejecting that. So I was saying no, and that power of no was the real power to myself. And that was what actually raised my vibrations. And you might remember that in that lesson when I talked about this, I knew that I'd arrived here. So I had also said no to the last bullshit situation and said, do you know what? It's not for me. It doesn't interest me at all. You know, I don't play the mind games. I don't want that. If someone can't say clearly what's happening, I'm out. And by doing that, I said to you that I would now be expecting something on my level, because I'd reached that point where I feel like everything that was thrown at me was a test, and I finally was able to pass it. So there was still, you know, some minor insecurities that I had about, you know, my own self-worth, but it grew with every test. I got stronger to the point where in the end it took me exactly 24 hours to recognize a red flag and walk away within that same time period. And I think that's when I really knew that you know, my vibrations are very high, operating for, you know, what is best for me, what is in my best interest, love-wise. And that now what would happen is what I'm attracting now is somebody who has the same keen sense of self-worth and self-love. So it could be any of these if they'd gone through the same journey and meet me back up here, or it would be someone new. We don't know. And this is where surrender comes into play, because we surrender to the universe. I've done everything I needed to do. The universe has seen it and is ready to reward me. It's like a really, really good parent, you know, a parent that's gone through like perfect parenting school. There is tough love, and the tough love sucks because comes with tears. You know, it is painful at times to go through that, because it's a huge transformation that is happening from this situation here to this potential situation here. I have changed possibly 180 degrees. I have turned myself around. I now know who I am in relationships, because I now know who I am, period. So that journey is something that I am so grateful I went through, even though there were days where I cursed it. And that's what I want you to be aware of as well. Surrender is not easy. It is simple. It is a simple concept. You do what's right, stay with your intuition, keep going. The universe has got your back. But at the same time, you need to appreciate that the pain that you go through is all for the greater good of you, and that one day you'll look back and go, yeah, it's well worth it. It's like labor, you know, it gives you a child. There's no two ways around the pain. And it's kind of in the same vein that the harder you work for something, the more you're going to appreciate. And I can now tell you the happy ending of surrender, that in the meantime, we're talking not long, since I last made the video for that lesson, I have met somebody, and not just somebody, I have met a person who I recognized straight away was on the same vibrational energy as me, the same. And it's a beautiful experience. It's a beautiful phenomenon because this connection is so strong and so pure because it's high vibrational. And a high vibrational connection has a lot of potential to grow. And so now I'm in that phase of what I've always wanted, which is, to have found that perfect soulmate. Not somebody who is mean to me, who lies to me, who, uses me when he wants to, or who goes hot and cold. No, somebody who values himself and therefore is able to value others. So that's my little happy ending, but it's just, I'm trying to confirm to you that surrender is a really important part, and I'm not unique in that way at all. This is something that can happen for you. It can happen for everyone, as long as you believe, as long as you have faith, and as long as you actually view your perception from the point of view where the universe is there to reward you, and it will reward you as soon as we deserve it. Meaning, as soon as we're able to have passed our lessons and to have transformed into the person that can appreciate a beautiful thing. And I'm not sure, looking back a year ago, that I would have appreciated this person. And I believe there is a mismatch. If there is a mismatch in vibrational energies, then it's probably best to go separate ways in love, but to go separate ways, because a high vibrational being will not be able to, or a human being in a high vibrational phase